Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please?
Like and subscribe.
Welcome to the Sit, Walk, Work podcast, a show about paying attention. My name is Dominic and I'm your host, and today is a guided meditation. And what you can expect is that the practice will open up with a brief recap, followed by the actual practice itself. If you find today's episode valuable, please share with your friends and family, and feel free to leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. The show will begin after the following chimes. For those who have not had this experience before, I'll give you a brief recap of the practice, and then I'll open the floor to any questions about the practice or anything that about meditation in general you'd like to discuss. Tonight's practice was really a foundational based practice. These are the elements that typically, one or more of these elements typically make up all of our practices, and they can all be used to deepen our mindfulness and to also bring us a bit of ease and peace when done consistently over time. And so the way we got to that today was through the breath first. The breath and the body were kind of one category together. So we started simply by noticing the breath and anchoring there. And we used that as an expansion point to move breath into the body. And then we contrasted that against the physical weight, density, temperature of the body as you were sitting in practice. We took those elements of breathing and feeling our bodies to understand what feeling tone was present within us for practice. So understanding what might have came up for you or what changed and came up over time as we practice is where we kind of held our attention there. And then we looked at, after the feelings, we kind of touched on noticing a little bit of what was going on in our mind, like how our concentration was being used in practice today. Were we, intensely focused or slightly softly focused, or, some combination thereof? And I asked you to kind of notice and pay attention to that. And then I asked you to kind of recognize and witnesses the things that distract us from practice. That's desire for things to be a certain way, frustration or anger, just being generally tired. Sometimes that might take our attention away from what we're trying to do. And then any just disinterest. Sometimes there's just topics we're not connected to at time. And so it's good to notice these things because they're ultimately pulling your attention away from what it is that you're trying to accomplish within the practice. And they will always be doing that for as long as we practice and as long as we have minds. And then we closed it out with a little bit of gratitude and loving kindness to ourselves, to others, just for being here and being able to make the practice. The foundations of meditation. I think it's something we often do regularly in this class, but we don't call that out. So really letting our minds and attention focus on the body, our feelings, our mind, and our mental objects. And so that's where I'll be pointing our attention throughout today's class. And of course, you find your own journey within that. So my ask of you is to be kind and patient with yourself with whatever arises. This is a learning experience. It's meant to create a space and opportunity for you to observe. And through the power of observation, maybe you find some stillness or maybe you find some understanding. So with that said, let's go ahead and start to bring our attention now to our postures. I know some folks are just joining us, and welcome to everybody who just kind of came in. But yeah, check your posture. Make sure you can breathe well, since breath is a huge anchor to what we do in practice. Make any adjustments to your comfort level if you need to. Another blanket, sit up a little taller, relax your shoulders, soften your jaw. Close your eyes if it feels safe. These are all little ways that we Begin the process of meditation, right? Mindfulness, this idea of paying close attention. And that's what you'll do as I kind of give you something to pay attention to. That's where you'll learn, and that's where you'll observe. That's where you'll notice. So closing the eyes immediately drops you into the space of witnessing your breath and feeling your body and noticing what your mind is doing. And just take a minute here as you kind of take in everything, as you're collecting yourself and gathering yourself, just to notice the overall tone of what's present in this moment. And maybe, if possible, distill it down to a word that feels familiar to you. And there's no right or wrong answer to what it is you observed or what word came to mind as you just begun noticing just the state you're arriving to practice in. Now, I say that casually, but our brains often will pass additional judgments, attach stories and things to the moment. And those are the things that I'm hoping we can avoid getting too deeply lost in as we begin to bring our attention to a much more narrow and a much more focused place. That place is our breath. And is observing and watching the breath at the point of its origin. So that starting point for you typically arises in one of two places, either breathing through the nose or you're breathing through the mouth or a combination thereof. So maybe three, but typically it's one or two. So notice where the breath is starting, holding your attention lightly here. In observing the breath, notice the length of your breath. Are you taking longer or shorter breaths in this moment? Notice the speed in which you're breathing. And are you able to stay with the breath, stay concentrated with it? Or did your mind wander by chance into a thought or into a feeling within the body or anywhere other than staying with the breath and observing those moments where the mind slips into thought and you are no longer the observer, you're kind of enmeshed in the thoughts. That is the opportunity for us to also notice when to redirect our attention back, when to have it return to the breath. And if any story begins to bubble up about your ability to hold your focus or your attention or about this moment, observe that too. Notice the way the mind does that and simply release it and return back to the breath. Now, the nice thing about your practice is along this journey of moving through breath and through the body and through the mind, you might feel called to stay and keep your attention in one place a little longer. Please know that that is entirely okay to allow your attention to stay with the breath as we begin to move into the body, following the tenets of being kind and holding to your anchor that you're focused on. We can begin to let our breath merge into our body. Now, adding on and feeling where the breath moves the body itself. And notice that from the inside. In addition to noticing what is happening in the body as you breathe, also notice other parts of the body, such as where your weight is distributed, where you're making contact to the surface that is supporting you, whether you're lying down or seated. Your weight is being distributed in this moment. Can you feel into that? Letting your attention be aware of of any additional tension you might be holding in the hands and the jaws and the body. Can you let the breath and the sensations with the body begin to align? This feeling of groundedness represents kind of the earth element as a physical embodiment within us, with the movement of breath representing air, any warmth you might feel representing fire, and the changing nature of all of your sensations representing the water element. These characteristics that you're focusing your attention on in the body and in the breath, and kind of allowing yourself to be this observer of them happening. They weave together to form a tapestry of what feelings arise within us. Typically, are the sensations, the feelings that we can sometimes meet in our practice might be pleasant, they might be unpleasant, they very well may be neutral. And in letting ourselves pay attention to them, notice the way we cling or push away from certain types of things that might be arising in the moment. Is it possible to suspend our judgment of those things that we like or don't like when they arise, and simply see them as just another changing element of the practice, like a breath going out or coming in? In this observation of our feelings arising, we also notice that they too respond in our stream of consciousness the same way our breath does and the way our body does, meaning that they are always changing moment to moment. This is an opportunity in the practice to let go of clinging. Sometimes in practice, we find ourselves wanting things to be a certain way or feeling something and not wanting it to change. And it's in that grasping of these very moving elements that we begin to create discomfort and suffering. Allowing this opportunity to notice your levels of focus and the level of effort you're placing into focusing on the elements of your practice. This can form our minds to feel very concentrated, or they can feel very expanded and open, depending on how we're holding our attention. Allow yourself to recognize and observe that in this moment. Anytime we come to sit and practice, we're faced with hindrances, things that can pull us off the path. Some we've talked about on the journey today, and not some, not so much. Right. So, this is an opportunity in practice to kind of notice where these things may or may not have shown up for you. Moments in the practice where you found yourself strongly attached to or wanting something to be a certain way, a strong desire, an anger or frustration that may have arose. a bit of being disinterested, just not wanting to be engaged with the objects today, or a bit of sluggishness. These things kind of pop up from time to time in our journey. And it's good to notice where they happen and re engage our mind back to the breath or to the body or to your general feeling tone. As you take on the witness of all that's changed in the practice, can you turn your attention to look for the space from which you've been witnessing your practice, to look for what's looking in that space. In this way, we are looking to connect to the idea that your consciousness isn't located, that it is spacious and open and arises and changes with each moment. In the last few minutes of practice, take this opportunity to invite in a bit of gratitude, love, and kindness, of appreciation for yourself showing up. wishing and acknowledging the universal desire to be happy, to be healthy, to be safe, and to live with ease. That those are qualities and things that you wish for yourself and for your loved ones and those around you. And just as I wish to be safe and happy and healthy and to live with ease, I wish for you to be safe, happy, healthy, and to live with ease as we begin to close out practice today. Slowly start to move the hands, blink the eyes open. Start to take in your practice and notice what you may want to bring back into your everyday life, your waking state, or simply just notice the observations that you collected during your practice today.
That's the beauty of it.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. I invite you to check out my Substack, where we are building a community of like-minded individuals to discuss all topics related to the idea of paying attention. I hope to see you there. But until then, with Metta, may you be well.
Like and subscribe.